Boys and girls, welcome back to what I think will be a pretty fiery and potentially intense Carnage House interview. I'm today going to be talking with Majid Said. Is that how you pronounce your surname?
Majid Said, yeah.
Majid Said. And Majid is a Black Lives Matter protester in Louisville, Kentucky. He's also studying a master's degree in Mandarin in Shanghai. And potentially his greatest achievement is being one of my good friends. So welcome to the Carnage House, Majid.
Yeah, long overdue.
Long overdue. Now, the first question I want to ask you is why you're protesting and how your experience has been. And I just posted up an Instagram story on the Carnage House asking if there's anyone who wanted to ask you any questions. And our friend Jason Omar Sari sent us a message. He's been on the channel before. He said, a question for Majid. I assume he's Arabic. From one Arab to another, what on earth are you doing? Thanks again, guys. Presumably from participating in the protests.
So what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, he said, what are you doing participating in the protests?
Well, I'm from Sudan. Which means in Arabic, land of the blacks. So I'm black and also Arab. So you could do that. That's a possibility, you know. And I'm participating in the Black Lives Matter movement because in my city, Louisville, police are killing African Americans and black people for no reason, and I feel the need to protest, and because I think it's an injustice, and I believe that I don't want to be killed by police for no reason, and you know, there's just that's the gist of it, I guess. I'm protesting because police are killing black people for no reason. I don't know. I think they should, face justice, and a lot of these police are kind of feel like they have some kind of immunity and stuff. So I figured I might as well join the protest. And obviously, I'm not trying to get killed for no reason, especially by a cop. And I'm not trying to be like a hashtag or something. Get killed for no reason, get choked out by a cop just because the cop's racist or not qualified or uneducated or all three in most of these cases.
So how's your experience been? Like, you've been out quite a few times, like posting your Instagram stories. We'll show them in a second, but how long have you been, have you been going out most days, or how have you been participating?
Well, the protests in Louisville and the protests in Minneapolis are different because this dates back about 2 months. The police in Louisville, no-knock warranted, and barged in the house and shot an 26-year-old EMT named Breonna Taylor for no reason. They had a no-knock warrant because they believed this house was selling drugs, and they were searching for a suspect who they already had in custody. So they already had someone in custody, and 12 hours later, in the middle of the night, barged in the house and shot her 8 times. Her boyfriend shot at the police to defend himself and got attempted murder, even though the police barged in for no reason. So
really?
So that's why Louisville's protesting. I think some of the Minneapolis stuff, they've arrested the police, but the Louisville police who've killed her are still remain, at large. And I've been to the protests, I think 3 out of the 6 days, or 7 or 8 days now. I think tonight's raining, so not many people are protesting out today. But I joined on Saturday, and so in Louisville, Louisville's named after Louis XVI, the French king during the French Revolution, got his head chopped off, and that's where I saw the video of the protester just snapping the statue, the hand of Louis XVI off.
Right.
That was on last Thursday, just about a week ago. So,
right.
But so can you repeat the question again? It's my first time on.
Yeah. Well, that was the answer, but. So so those in that case you were referring to, sorry, I forgot the girl's name, and the guy who's facing attempted murder, boyfriend, Bianca Taylor. So those 4 cops.
They actually dropped their charges. Yeah.
Yeah. So those 4 cops haven't faced any disciplinary measures.
I'm not sure how many cops were part of the raid, but this is just like negligence on like a bigger scale, from the prosecutor, the judges who sent out the warrant, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just the 4 cops. per se.
Yeah, well, 100%. I think we'll definitely get into this discussion a bit later. But one of the things I think probably a lot of people would agree upon is that there seems to be, from what I can tell from some statistics and stuff, that there's not many prosecutions of like successful prosecutions of cops in these cases where there's like unarmed shootings, etc. I mean, you'll get these guys in the George Floyd case will probably get prosecuted successfully because everyone's paying attention. But when there's people not paying attention, it seems like these cops probably won't get, they kind of get protected. It's police investigating police. And if it does end up going to court, like there's a good chance it won't be successful. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the video, if there was no video, this wouldn't have been a story, and should have been a story when, a cop puts his knees and chokes out, suffocates George Floyd in 9 minutes, without any regard for human decency. So,
well, there was actually a really similar incident that happened in Australia in 2015 in a prison in an Aboriginal guy, which is resurfacing and making a lot of headlines. A guy called David Dungay with a similar getting restrained. One police had a knee on his back, and the police didn't get prosecuted because they said that it was more due to pre-existing conditions than it was excessive use of force, which when I watched the video didn't really seem to be the case. Sorry to cut you off there. But what I do now, just so everyone can kind of be on the same page, is I'm going to go into your Instagram and flick through a couple of your highlights of you kind of at the protests. And so people can kind of see what it's like. Now! Justice! Now! Now we're back. One of the interesting things about the Louisville protest, or one of the points that came up when I was researching was, I think it was on Monday, there was a guy, David McCarthy, I don't know how to pronounce his name, killed by police and National Guard, right? And they're trying to clear a crowd. Has that been a big deal in the protests in Louisville?
Yeah, our police chief was fired after that because so this was 20 something blocks away from where the protests were, and this guy, he was at his home, and the police kind of just they had no business being there, and there's disputes if he shot the first shot or he was defending himself or the police just killed him. Because none of the police had body cams when they should have. Yeah, and that was a big deal. So the police chief was fired. Maybe Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday, I'm not sure what day, but so people are marching for him as well. He was he got cops eat for free there for years, and so and a lot of people were kind of justifying that the police killing him because of the he pulled their gun on them, but people are protesting because against the police for them killing black civilians for no reason, and then the police kill him. So I mean, he probably had every right to defend himself because police are killing black people for no reason. So I mean, and now he's dead, and the police are they're just chilling, on administrative leave or whatever they're doing, but they're not in jail,
And have you seen many instances of were you seeing some instances of police using tear gas and I don't know if you've seen rubber bullets and stuff. I remember you told me you're dodging tear gas. Have you seen much of that from the police, and have you seen much violence or looting and stuff from the protests?
So the first question, the first day I went out on Saturday, the police, their stations across, people are very passionate about this, obviously. And they have, baking soda and waters. They kind of mix them and milk. Station's kind of ready in every corner, because when you get hit with tear gas, you don't, it kind of follows the air, so you're supposed to turn corners. So every corner is stations with milk and baking soda ready for you to to like just pour it in your eyes or, help you, assist you because you're getting gas, it's a chemical weapon. So, so that first day, the police decided to destroy they just went, kind of blocked off and destroyed all. That's one of the videos I think you showed that. And there's better angles. Obviously, I was just in the crowd and happened to see it from my vantage point. But the police just destroyed all of it. And the next day they said that they were afraid these things were flammable, like milk. So, right. I mean, and then about 10 minutes later started tear gassing people, and there was it was not provoked. People weren't throwing shit at them or anything like that. They were just decided to tear gas people. And yeah, so I was, in the middle of it, and it's not very fun. So
right. And
but they're not using no rubber bullets. I think they have the pepper bullets don't quote me on that, but they have the pepper bullets, kind of like pepper spray,
Right. And what about from the protesters? Have you seen much like breaking shops or like looting or stuff like that? Have you seen anyone? Like people beating other people up? Because there are some of those videos going around on the internet which are pretty scary.
No, I've not seen that. I feel like that happens, at later times in the night. I wasn't, I don't think anything. Things get a little bit tense, after a certain time of the night. So I've always left before 10ish. So I haven't. I can't really say anything. But the looting, I've seen some of the businesses that were the windows were smashed and stuff like that. And I've seen like videos, obviously, and I mean,
yeah.
So I mean that's one of the talking points, and people are condemning the protesters for that and stuff. And but I did see when I was walking around that area that some neo-Nazi, because Kentucky has some, it's a very red state, and there's I ran into some neo-Nazis, and I knew that because they had Nazi tattoos, and they're walking around with some AR-15s, walking around one of the places that were one of the malls that were like kind of ransacked or looted. Right. So they're just patrolling it. So that's one of the things I'm a little nervous about, a potential race war, because these people are probably itching for it. So yeah,
I think we can that would be one of the things we talk about. Now, a few days ago, and this was kind of the reason or the initial spark of the discussion that we're going to have, is an Instagram story I posted to the Carnage House Instagram. Go follow us there if you haven't already. Where basically I gave my take on some things about Black Lives Matter, about the protests, about police brutality, and some other issues. I'm going to bring that up now.
How's it going on, CHP family? I haven't talked to you in a while, but I thought I'd make a little comment about a lot of the riots that's going on in America, a lot of the posts I see people make, friends, people I know, kind of telling us what racism is. And there's an interesting sleight of hand, as far as I can tell, what's going on recently around the Black Lives Matter protests around the world, and in the intersectional feminist movement today, where racism is no longer defined as judging somebody by their skin color. That seems to be the favorite activity of those in the Black Lives Matter camp, is judging white people on their skin color. And telling you that you're racist, even though you don't know it, and that there's a whole set of judgments they can make about you and about your life and about your Instagram cuts me off there. They can make a whole set of judgments about you and your contribution to the world and your life by nothing other than the pigment of your skin. And the first thing I would say is, who changed the definition of racism from judging somebody by their skin color to a set of complex social power structures in which we all operate, but we can't see, and you're guilty of without knowing it by virtue of your skin color? Because judging by the, let's say, civil rights movement definition of racism, which is judging somebody by their skin color, when we look at things like segregation, when we look at things like slavery, that's the operational definition. And it seems to me a very tactical sleight of hand by the people at the top of these movements and it's and the allegation of racism, not defined as judging people by their skin color, is a crafty move designed to shut people up who disagree with them. And there's a range of people who disagree with the Black Lives Matter movement based on statistics of uplifting black people out of poverty, where they say actually the poverty is not caused by institutional or systematic racism. It's caused by things like failure to complete high school, like fathers not being around in the homes, like having children out of marriage, which are all real concrete things which nobody in the Black Lives Matter talks about. I mean, we see rap and, athletes all lecturing us about racism when so many of them have children out of marriage and they're not in their lives. So if we want to have a serious discussion about police brutality, about racism, let's absolutely have it, and it's a conversation that we need to have. But at the same time, let's also talk about all the other serious things that we know for a fact cause poverty in black communities in America and in Aboriginal communities in Australia. Let's talk about fathers staying in the homes. Let's talk about not having babies out of wedlock. Let's talk about domestic violence rates. Let's talk about drug abuse rates. Let's talk about black on black crime. Let's talk about black on white crime, as well as white on black crime, as well as white on black from police officers. I mean, there's all of these factors which we need to talk about, which are not just get out of jail free cards for those in some communities to blame their lot in life on other people. And let's remember, my favourite definition, and I think the real definition of racism, is judging people by their skin colour. But if there's one group of people that's going to go around and accuse white people of being racist, despite having never done anything racist, potentially in their entire lives, don't be surprised when white people get up and say, all right, if you're going to judge us for being white, guess what? Hey, you might get judged for being black, and then you're going to scream racist then. So how about we start judging people as individuals based on their own character, based on their own achievements, based on how they interact with people and interact with the world, instead of by their skin color, because it's a bad game to play. It ends in bad results. We've seen it so many times in history, and just because you decide that other people are bad because of their skin color, and that might be a favourable position for you to take today, does not mean it'll be a favourable position for you to take in the future.
Righty. Now, after that video I put up, I got, as you can probably imagine, a mixed bag of responses. One of them, critical one from Majid. Why don't you kind of tell me about your reaction to that video? Why don't you tell me?
I mean,
hold on. Let's just pause for 1 second. What I will say now is that I think we should have a really open and honest discussion. And whatever you want to say, I want you to not be like scared of offending me or ripping into me too much. Like I'm hoping that through this conversation we can kind of move a bit more towards the truth. So there's a good chance I might be wrong. I think there might be a good chance you're wrong on some things, but we'll hopefully move closer. So say as honest as you can.
All right. Well, I guess that was a lot to unpack, and you had a lot of opinionated statements on all black people, which is a lot of generalizations. You said your definition of racism is just like just based on like skin color and stuff like that, and I'm not sure what like people have different definitions for racism, and I think like I can just look up race is a group of humans based on shared physical and social qualities, categories generally viewed as distinct by society. The term was first used to speakers of common language and then to denote national affiliations. So yes, there's whites, there's blacks, there's Pacific Islanders, there's Asians, there's all these other kind of things. But I mean, your friend who just asked a question earlier, and the first guy asked a question is, why are you as an Arab going to a Black Lives Matter protest? And he saw my name and says, oh, he's Arab, So is he racist for asking that question? No, he's not. He's just I am Arab and I am black, and you could be a black Arab, you could be whatever, and that's where like you are still pushing this definition of racism to fit like your narrative, and I didn't think that was fair. And you kind of you kind of brushed over all the police brutality stuff, and you were talking about the issues in the African American communities. And I don't think it was really fair because, you know, you live in Australia. I'm not sure how many black people live in Australia. Maybe like, I know there's some like refugees from Africa and stuff like that. It's just different. They weren't, I don't think, I can't say I'm familiar with Australian history. You know, it wasn't a very big chapter in our history books in America. We just know a lot of y'all came from like England and stuff like that. And, you know, you got kangaroos and Aborigines. And that's what Americans know about Australia.
Mm.
So where do I go from here? Sorry, there's a lot of
That's okay.
what to think about.
I'll say a couple of things. Is firstly, there's definitely you know, in the same way, people's opinions I think do get more valuable and less valuable based on, like, let's call it their proximity to the problem, right? And I'm definitely far away from the problem and the protests in America and don't have much to do with them. And that definitely means that my knowledge on the issue doesn't include the level of personal experience that a lot of other people who speak on it do. That's definitely true. But as well, I would say at the same time, you see people all over the world commenting on it, I would say probably most in favor of like the Black Lives Matter movement, posting blackout pictures, doing the hashtags, etc. And at the same time, you don't see like the Black Lives Matter people saying, you guys are far away from the problem, you don't understand it, you can't, you know, speak on it, right? So I think that just because
that's just solidarity. That's just like you're just in solidarity with the people that are, you know, getting oppressed. It's like the thing, you know, people have always done in the past. People, you know.
Well, what that sounds like to me is saying, if you disagree with us, it's obviously because you don't understand it because you're far away. And if you do agree with us, you're allowed to speak on it, however far away you are.
No, you were pointing out the issue about the definition of racism, and then you're like, if you want to talk about racism, you listed a lot of issues in African American communities, and it was just brought like a lot of just generalizations and just like issues, and then you didn't really go back to the problem that we're dealing with. I'm not a spokesman for Black Lives Matter or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
I just went to a protest in my city because, you know, I believed, you know, I'm there. I need to see it for myself, and I believed in, you know, what they're marching for. I can't attest to, you know, everything else going on. I'm not, you know, I'm not rocking a Colin Kaepernick jersey or any of that other shit. You know, I'm just, you know, in Louisville. I'm in Louisville, and, you know, coronavirus happened. I had to get the fuck out of China, so I'm in Louisville, and I wasn't gonna sit in my house and, you know, just watch it on TV. I might as well see it for myself. And I went once. I'm gonna go back tomorrow, and, you know, I've been 3 times. I'll go back tomorrow, and, you know, keep till, you know, because why not, you know?
Yeah, well, 100%. And one of the things looking back on that video, it would have been nice for me to talk about police brutality and probably do a bit more research before I made that video. I did make a subsequent post on the actual issue of police brutality, and let's talk about kind of police brutality / is there systemic racism in America or in the police force? You've said that there is, let's say, a tendency for cops to kill black people for no reason, and there is definitely occasions where that's the case, is in my opinion, and some of the examples we've talked about today. There's also occasions where police kill white people without a reason. And so if we're talking about Black Lives Matter, I think I think there probably needs to be some evidence that police kill more black people like without a reason than white people, or if like, because if everyone is saying that everyone would agree that killing people without a reason or killing like unarmed suspects in arrests is bad, right? Like the Wall Street Journal published an article a couple of days ago called "The Myths of Systemic Police Racism in US," right? And they said that last year police killed 19 unarmed white people and 9 unarmed black people. Now, each one of those cases is one too many, right? But if you actually take those deaths during arrest and control those statistics for, let's say, violent crime rates, black people are actually underrepresented. Now, if you take it as, if you control it for population, they're overrepresented. And so I guess that's when the question of racism comes in. So what do you think? What do you think about that?
I also want to go back to your talking points from the video, because we just pivoted to this and I never had to address that, and that was the crux of the argument. But we'll talk about the police brutality, I guess. So I think blacks in America represent 12% of the country, more or less, maybe 14%. I'm not sure. There's new census out this year, so we'll have a better idea of the statistics and stuff like that. But yeah. So you said 19 whites were killed and 9 blacks were killed, and so basically that's what, almost 33%, even though 12% are of the population are black. So almost threefold the statistic of blacks getting killed versus so you're 3 times more likely, by that statistic, I guess, right? So the issue isn't the issue. I'm sure if the police that were killing them, I never hear about that, but I'm sure those police are getting reprimanded. The issue with the blacks are people use those like justification that like the neighborhoods and the areas where blacks live or whatever are dangerous, and they're violent offenders, so they use this to justify police using lethal force on unarmed people. So and you're also pulling all these statistics off of people getting arrested, but the police, what leads to that? You know what I'm saying? Why did George Floyd get arrested? He did someone thought he did a forged check, and he got arrested and got suffocated. So police are much more likely to pull over, an African American, like 25%, much more likely to get to pull over an African American than a white person, and they're 25% more likely to search them, and 8% without even an arrest warrant, and 59% more likely to use force against them.
Right.
So all I know is that if police are racial profiling, so like they like it's just the statistics like kind of what's called like speak for themselves, that police are doing racial profiling. So why are these black people getting arrested and then they're getting killed? You know what I'm saying? So by that logic, like a white person is less likely to get arrested and less likely to get like killed, right? You know what I'm saying? In the process. So
in that same article, they talk about that last year police fatally shot 1,004 people, most of whom were armed and dangerous, and those African Americans were 235 out of 1,004. But so I think it might be useful to make like a distinction between like it might be more justified or maybe not more justified, maybe less bad, or maybe more understandable, or however you want to say it, of police killing like armed and dangerous suspects, right? What we care about, I think, the most is probably those unarmed suspects. But as a 235 out of 1,004 of people dying, of African Americans dying by police shootings, is underrepresentative of violent crime statistics, right? So the reason I'm introducing this violent crime statistics to this conversation is that deaths during arrest are obviously bad and should be getting a lot of spotlight, but it also seems to me that deaths during arrest are probably a function of interactions that you have with the police. So I saw a statistic a couple of days ago which counts deaths per 10,000 arrests. right? Deaths per 10,000 arrests. And black people it was 4 out of 10,000 for black people or African Americans, and 5 out of 10,000 for white people. Now, I do concede your point that there's absolutely, and I wouldn't know this, I'm happy to take your point that potentially the arrest in the first place had some level of racial profiling involved. But some of those statistics that I've seen would indicate that potentially some of those systemic racism claims might not be backed up by evidence.
So you're saying, I mean, the odd, like, there's a lot of in my city, for example, a couple years ago, I'll have to get an exact quote. In my city, about, this is like the town over from my city. It's called Prospect. So he said,
who's the guy?
An officer in my city. This is 2 years ago. He was in the force for 20 years. He said the officer told recruits during a training scenario, the right thing to do if you caught 3 juveniles smoking marijuana, black ones, fuck the right thing. If black, shoot them. This was 2 years ago.
Really?
In my city.
So
yeah, like
that.
Like you can't say there's no evidence. Yeah, I'll send you the article if you want. But like you can't look up Prospect, Louisville, N-word or black, shoot blacks on site, and you'll find it. But
Right.
You can't say there's no systemic racism when when did systemic racism stop? You can't just say that cops became not racist overnight. The criteria to the standards for being cop were super low in America. Like, I don't know anyone I went to university with that became a police officer. One of the guys who's 2 doors down from me in the dorms after university applied to become a cop and a police officer in my city, and they told him, "You have a college degree. Why do you want to be a cop? You're overqualified." And they rejected him. They said he's too overqualified to be a cop.
Really?
So the standards are super low. The guys that are becoming police officers are not college educated. They get good benefits and are from and it's not a very glorified position anymore. So it attracts people that at a lot of the times, I'm not saying all cops are racist. I think a lot of cops do a lot of good, but there are situations like in Minnesota and other places where these guys are just fucking bullies, and they just they want to take out their anger on black people and stuff like that. So I'm not saying, but to become a police chief, you have to be in the police force for 30 years. So 30 years ago, these police were, their chiefs were police officers during like the civil rights era. So they're learning from the police chief in my city and other cities, learning from police chief 30 years ago who was fucking racist. Like, it's not a doubt. Like, there's no you can pull out all these statistics and stuff like that. I know a lot of people like you got like, especially on the conservative side, they just pull like statistics and they're like this, and like, yes, these statistics are like they show something, but they don't show the entire picture. It's just numbers. Like every black person is a fucking number. Like, these people are dying for no reason, and there is racism in this country. This country has had racism had slavery for hundreds of years, and that stuff doesn't go away right away. So black people just like, oh, you're free from slavery. Now go to college. It doesn't work like that. Like, and it's ignorant to say, oh, like black people are they're having kids out of wedlock or all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of like, oh, like, it's expensive to get married. First of all, like, these people, like, maybe they're just having like consensual sex, and next like they have a kid. It's not like, you can't just say like, oh, and the having the not father around. There's a lot of other like personal factors that that's all case to case. It's not like a general thing. Oh, black dads are not in the society or whatever. So I think I went a little tangent there, but I think
no, but that's good. A couple points I want to talk about is, one, I don't think anybody would deny that there would definitely be cases of racist cops, bully cops, etc. The question is whether it's like systemic. And even, I mean, one of the things you say is I make some generalizations, but the allegation of systemic racism is a generalization in itself, because presumably
when did the systemic racism stop? Because you could agree there was systemic racism X years ago, right? Yes or no? Yeah, there was, like,
sure.
60 years ago, MLK, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
There
Sure.
was systemic racism. So when did it stop? Like, these cops like still had their jobs after, you know.
These aren't the same cops though. The MLK is like 60 years ago. These aren't the same.
I'm sure, I'm 100% aware of that. I'm saying, but when did that stop? You know.
Well, when did racism, let's say well, I'm not in America, but presumably, like, if you were to ask your friends in America, like, when did racism stop? Like, well, unless you would say that your friends, like, would still be racist, presumably they would say, like, I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 years ago, at least sometime there's been like some transition, right, between then and today. Because when I look at some of these statistics, it doesn't say to me that there's systemic racism today. There'd definitely be cases of individual racism. Also, what I would say is, like, I thought it was an interesting point you made before about when the black kids get killed in, let's say, inner cities, and the cops would probably get off, but when they kill like an unarmed white person, those cops would probably be prosecuted. One of the talking points I hear from the conservative commentators, like Rush Limbaugh, for example, when he went on Charlemagne's show, is that if it was a white person instead that got killed by cops, you would never have heard about it. And so there's way less chance that there would have been like prosecutions and justice, let's say, being served in that case. And finally, the last thing I would say before,
why do you think there's no cases? Are like black people just quick to jump on Twitter and just be like, oh, like they just push the narrative? I'm sure these cops that are killing white people, I don't know, because you never hear about it. I'm sure they get justice. They probably get arrested, reprimanded right away. But it's more complicated with that, because there is systemic racism. There's like, you can't, like, I know police officers, and I know these people are racist. Like it's just a thing. Like, I know like I've met many police officers, and like they just need to raise the standards. Like I don't know.
But do you think that's a generalization, or are you happy to make?
Am I
saying the only reason I bring that up, right, is that when I bring up, let's say, black children being born out of marriage, right? The statistic I've seen is that 75% of black kids born today will be born out of marriage, right? Which is up from 25% in 1960. So whether, you say to me, you're generalizing about black dads or black families or whatever, it's like, maybe, but are we just going to eliminate all generalizations from the conversation? Because it seems to me like this conversation about like black lives is like kind of a generalization in itself, because not all black people are, the same.
What does
right?
What does that have to do with this argument? What does a guy having sex with a woman consensually and having a kid, what does it have to do with anything?
Well, what it has to do,
that's their business. It's not your business to judge. After like black people as a race, they're like, oh, they're all like 75% of black guys are having sex out of marriage, like, and having kids, and like, what does that have to do with this argument? You're just like looking down on like 75% of black people and making generalization. This should be personal, like person to person basis. I know you're trying to flip the argument and say cops should be person to person basis, but like black people, those people don't have like authority over me to arrest me for no reason and kill me for no reason. And like, if they want to have kids out of marriage or whatever, maybe they don't have kids. I think black people are pretty against abortion a lot of the time, and maybe they don't want to do an abortion. That's a cultural thing. That has nothing to do with the police or anything else. Like, and saying black people having kids out of marriage is okay. For that reason, it's okay for police to kill them because they're bastards or something. It's just preposterous to even like to add that to the argument, because it doesn't really. It causes some issues, obviously. Like, my parents are divorced, your parents are, but like that no one says anything about you. No one critiques you for that, and no one's like, oh, every single son of a politician in Australia whose parents are divorced has like some kind of issue and like kill someone. So say you shot up a school and like another person did. They're like, oh, 20% of Australian sons of politicians whose parents are divorced shot up a school. Like that's not a way to look at the argument. Like, cops are killing black people. I know you're trying to flip the argument on me and saying, oh, because you're saying that each black person like having bastards or whatever or having kids out of marriage is you should look at it on a case by case basis. That police should you should look at police. Those people have nothing to do with me. Like, they have their own issues. They're working on it. Like, black people have gone through a lot of shit in America. Like, a fuck ton of shit. Like, I was lucky. My parents are doctors. Like, my dad's a doctor, and I immigrated to America, and I've never had to deal with living in the projects or anything like that. So, like, you've never experienced that or anything like that. So it's not on you to delve into these like socioeconomic cultural issues, because it has nothing to do with you. I don't know why you're like so quick to like defend these police officers for for using these statistics. These statistics are like, these like people have done studies or whatever, but there's only so much you could go in these statistics. Like, there's only so much research. Like, all this research doesn't have like body cams, doesn't have you can't look into the officer's mind. You can you have to survey the officer. Yes, are you racist? No, they're racist. A lot of these like studies are they don't paint the full picture, and like you can't act like they do, because that just ignores the issue and says there's no problem, there's no evidence, just racism. You watch the fucking guy get fucking choked out by some fucking dickhead cop. Like, there is that's an issue, and those 3 officers stood there. Is there an issue there? Is there an issue with their training? Yes. Are they racist? Probably. I mean, I can't label someone a racist, but from what I saw, yeah, those guys are racist, and like they should get prosecuted for murder. Like, but yeah, like there's a lot of other issues in the African American community, but they need to there's a lot of issues with redlining and other things that have caused like the poverty and have not let African Americans, there's affirmative actions for that to help African Americans, but you can't just say that black dads leaving their kids or whatever, or like deadbeat dads or whatever, is the reason why blacks are getting killed by cops. It's not like a valid argument, and that's why I was offended from like your thing, because like you've been to America maybe like once or twice on like a field trip or with your family, and you went to like LA, San Francisco, and like New York, like every other like European or Australian has. You've never been to Louisville. I don't know why maybe the Kentucky Derby. That's the only reason you come to Louisville, but I don't know. But I just feel like you shouldn't just judge the community as a whole, saying 75% of all that kind of stuff. Like, who cares? Like, it's first of all, it's none of your business. Like if I say I conceive a child or whatever, and I don't want to marry this girl or something, that's on me. Like, if she just if she wants to go through the kid, that we'll do that. But that has nothing to do with police killing black people. There's obviously issues related to Jim Crow, slavery, all that kind of stuff with African Americans. And yeah, if you're like poor and a bad community, these people never had a chance. So yeah, you'll probably go into criminal activity and stuff like that, and that's just how it is. And nothing's happening. People are still in jail for fucking marijuana while people are opening dispensaries all over America. I'm sure many people, African Americans especially, have probably gotten killed for during arrest for having weed. And I'm sure, you and I both, have smoked weed. I assume. So I think I think I went on a little tangent, a little spastic. So,
but that's good. I'll respond with a couple of things. The reason why I brought up this kind of, I don't want to spend too much time on it, this kind of generalization point, right, is that I don't think in the context of this argument where we talk about Black Lives Matter and where we talk about the black community in America as a whole, I don't think we can escape from generalizations and treat it as individual case by case. So when we're bringing up points for both sides, I think we just have to probably accept that there's going to be some generalizations, because like to talk about the black community in America is a generalization in itself. The second,
you're not black, so
but I mean, but also when you talk about like white cops, that's also a generalization. But even though
I haven't really, I said police in general.
Well, but even police in general, like it's a generalization to talk about police in general, right? As opposed to like these four in the case.
I mean, police, like that's a job and stuff like that. Like people say like investment bankers or, economists and stuff like that. And that's not a generalization. Like for the most part, people just say
generalization. Because as soon as you make as soon as you say something about them, then it's a generalization, because it's obviously not going to apply to every single person, right? Let's say
obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like, but people are very defensive about police because sensitive issue and they have a lot of control. But there's issues in police departments all over. It's corruption, like all this stuff's like documented, like police, and they feel protected. So like,
sure. But what I'm saying is that if you're saying I can't make a statement about, let's say, African Americans because it's a generalization, but the whole time we're making
that's an argument with the Black Lives, like with police.
But I'm about to come back. All I'm saying is that I don't think those arguments should be disqualified based on the fact that they're a generalization. Now they might be disqualified based on the fact that you think I shouldn't say them or whatever. But firstly, like the idea that we can't have generalizations, I think in this discussion.
Condescending. I thought it was condescending.
Yeah. Now, the second thing I would say is that when in that video I brought up other things, like other issues about like kids being born out of marriage or like other issues like that, it wasn't, I didn't mean to connect it at all to as like a cause of police violence, right? I never meant to, it wasn't my intention. And I'm not sure if we look back on the video that it will say like police are more justified in using excessive force on Black people because of these like other issues, right? The point I was making and the reason why I brought up those issues, right, is like this movement, right, name is Black Lives Matter, but we know for a fact that if you were born out of a marriage or you're born without a dad, it makes you like way more likely to turn to crime. It makes you way more likely to be unemployed, and it makes like, or it really, really damages your future life outcomes just based on statistics, right? There's obviously, that's a generalization. There's obviously kids who don't end up like getting institutionalized or whatever, but it's just way higher when you don't have a dad around, or way higher when you grow up out of marriage. So what I'm saying is, if Black Lives Matter is talking about police brutality, it's like, where are the people sticking up for those children who don't have a dad? Or where are those people sticking up for
What do you mean? Like you want to extend the art? This is about racism. It's not about just like you're like dissecting the thing and like kind of looking at, you're just using statistics and like from like a high horse, you're just like, oh, all these rappers are having all these baby mamas, all this kind of stuff. It's very, very condescending. Like if you look at like, I'm sure like other people will agree, like if you're looking at you're looking at Black people as like a race of just like, and you're just like you're saying, oh, like they're like someone needs to like be a father figure to these Black boys so they won't go end up in jail, all that kind of stuff. Like I'm sure people understand these like issues. I don't think people definitely care about it, and I'm sure people eventually like will like solve these kind of issues. But like these are socioeconomic issues that deal with like a capitalist society in America, which is very dog eat dog, and these people never had a chance. So maybe that guy never had a kid, a father. Maybe that person didn't. Maybe that person didn't. And then that person's father was a fucking slave. So like, I don't know what you want bringing that argument, those statistics isn't really, you're acting like, oh, like Black people and white people have like are on the even playing field. It's not like, and it's obvious. If you just drive around the neighborhoods in downtown, go look at your yearbook. Like these people, none of them went to college. Like in some of these schools, they all just working at McDonald's or whatever. They never had a chance. Like these people are literally just like put in these shitty schools in America, just like forced to go there K to 12, not learn anything. These teachers suck. Like this is all stems from like redlining, other kind of stuff, and like segregation, all this kind of stuff. So I'm saying that like using that's not a very good argument to make, because first of all it's condescending. Second of all, you bringing that up doesn't solve the issue, because again, if you just look at the family tree, the last father might have been a fucking slave, and that's like, what does that father know, that slave know about anything? Probably can't read. He's a fucking slave. He's property, So I'm not really sure like where you're gonna go with that argument, and like what like who you trying to convince with the argument. I'm sure you can convince other white people, but like you don't understand you don't like your ancestors were like your ancestors were like for fucking England. England was like England or like UK or something, and they're like the fucking British Empire. Like they sailed up to Australia. You know what I'm saying? Like it's completely different. And like you just gotta like put yourself in other people's shoes before you just whip out these statistics. Like people like Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, all those people love to put statistics up there to like help their argument, and like it makes them sound super smart, but like they don't like listening to the other side of the argument, and that's important if you want to to what's called. And if you're using all these statistics and justifying all this kind of stuff, then you'll never solve the problem. If you're saying, oh, like there's no evidence of this, like in the court of like no, like the evidence is you watch the video. Like if you haven't watched the video, like there's issues in police departments. This police officer was trained. He's had many issues in the past because never lost his job or anything. He's still a police officer like a week ago. So I think what's it called?
Yeah. So yeah,
it's very hard for
raising that argument.
It's very hard for it's really easy to whip out stats. Like I know like Ben Shapiro and all those people really like to whip out all these stats and all kind of stuff, but I mean they have their own agendas, and I think if you could easily convince someone that this like against this argument, but if you do, you can look back, and I'm sure in 20 years you look back and say, oh, that was probably wrong, and I was probably on the wrong side of history, because 6 years ago a lot of people who are against it now, they're looting, the black people are looting the fucking grocery stores and all that kind of stuff. First of all, those places have insurance, and also like people will sympathize with them and they'll get GoFundMe's and they'll easily get whatever they're back and then some. And it's during a pandemic, so they get to touch up their places anyway. I'm not justifying looting, but I'm just saying on the bright side they'll be fine. And also, yeah, so those people 60 years ago, their grandparents were saying the same thing. I'm not saying it's the same, like it's not the same kind of racism, but it's like people just feel uneasy about people feel uneasy, and they're not saying the N-word or lynching people like they were 100 years ago, but there's a different kind of racism, and like just whipping out stats and all that kind of stuff to say it's not the same as the past. Obviously not, and it's changed, but people are still deep down a little racist. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's So people like, would you want to send your kids to an all-black school? Let's get kids with all black people. Probably not. Like for the schools, like if you want to in the inner city neighborhood, no, you can go, like a lot of people in my town, they send their kids to private Catholic schools because they're not exposed to like the schools are in nicer areas. The what's it called? The quality of education is better because if they're not there, they're in class with different diversity, and it's kind of the education level is not as good, so that people go there. So yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent.
No, that's okay. That's good. That's good. But I think the reason why I bring up like those things is like I agree with you, right? When you say that a lot of these kids never had a chance, right? And when you break down why it is exactly that they never had a chance, I think police and you list those reasons. I think police brutality potentially is on that list, but I think there's a lot of other things that are on that list too, right? And so as far as I can tell, on one level, Black Lives Matter is about police brutality, right? But on another level, Black Lives Matter is also about like trying to bring attention to like inequalities in America, like racial inequalities, and trying to kind of it attributes the reason why black people get worse life outcomes in America than other races is because of like systemic racism. And my feeling is that there is a lot of really big things that we can focus on as well as police brutality that would probably even have more of an impact. Now you say I'm not even in the right position. I'm listening to people like Ben Shapiro, whoever, but there's also a lot of black commentators in America who I do like, who you haven't mentioned. I mean, I'm sure you'd have some type of opinion on Candace Owens. We can talk about like the economist Thomas Sowell, depending on how you say his name. But there's also like black people who totally reject a lot of what Black Lives Matter is saying, and who basically have informed a lot of my opinions as well. What do you think about that?
I can't attest to those people or anything because I'm not not an expert on the movement. I just went to a protest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues in the community, I'm sure, and it's quite obvious. But the issue right now that is what's going on in America. People are protesting against the police and all that kind of stuff. The police represent a bigger thing. The police are how the government, enforces the law and all kind of stuff, and they're not enforcing the law equally. So that's one step. I'm sure, obviously, the police, reforming the police isn't going to solve it, but you have to make progress, and that's one way to do it. So I don't think, I'm sure other people disagree. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. You're as well. I'm not telling you to like shut up and white silence is violent. I'm not saying that kind of stuff. I'm just saying like I thought your statements were kind of like out of line and and condescending in a way, and from someone 10,000 miles away. And yeah, there's a lot of people with different thoughts in America, free speech and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, I think you could definitely, you have some points. Yeah, that protesting police brutality isn't going to solve all the issues in the African American community. It's not going to like make every African American father with a kid marry the mom now or anything or whatever. I don't know what, but I'm saying there's social workers, people like that in society that can help that kind of stuff, and cultural things will change as people will be able, as African Americans have more rights. If someone's getting arrested for no reason, all that kind of stuff, that can have damage down the line. If I can't pay bail or something, I can't go to work, all that kind of stuff, and I'm getting arrested. People getting arrested, so it's like a endless cycle, and the system's against them. That's all it is. And people should address that instead of going to the big picture and coming in from different angles. But the what I'm saying, because it's not really conducive or like helping the cause.
Sure. Well, let's think about in terms of the protests making progress on the issue of, let's say, police brutality, excessive force, racism, etc. You see like the chants and the signs protesting for justice. Is there any like kind of specific things that you could hope to kind of change? Because I see from Obama's statement that a lot of the crime, like kind of crime and jail and things like that, are handled by like local and state governments. And so he said to make sure to increase like voter turnout at elections. But in terms of, let's say, reforming what's called systemic racism, or the system being against them, what types of things would you be looking for?
So in both cases in Louisville, where people were Breonna Taylor and Dave McAtee were murdered by police, none of them had body cams on. That's a big issue. And the no-knock warrant in Breonna Taylor's case was also an issue that they stopped them, and they fired the police chief, and they were outraged. There's no body cams while police were just patrolling the streets like they're fucking invading Poland. So there's just, police have a kind of feel like they have immunity in America, and like the process to fire police officers is just absurd. This person's not very qualified, first of all, like to police me. I'm way more educated, smarter than most of these people, and I think I'm smarter than most cops in America. I'd say. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I don't think most of these guys are just like slapdicks that are wait until 21 and join the cops because they're fucking bullets. But all the time, but not all the time, obviously. But but yeah, who polices the police? Like how do they become accountable? There's a lot of corruption. Yeah, like elections, all that kind of stuff obviously matter. Voting. I've never voted before. I'm not a big. I don't think it's changed anything because especially with the police, because they'll always be there. They're not. There's not a Democratic and Republican police. There's just the police, and they work with the mayor and all that kind of stuff. And it's not political per se from like the left or right or whatever kind of point of view, but it is. They have politics because they have a lot of control and they have to, put their lives on the line. So the government has to work with them. And obviously, and the police don't give up their rights and put themselves in, like, say they are in a position, they don't want to end up in jail, obviously, or anything, because they're in theory supposed to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So once they give up those rights, like maybe they could go back and be like, oh, this officer can go to jail because he did actually kill someone for no reason X years ago and nothing happened. So the government and police are in a little dilemma because police need to work with them, but at the same time, the government has to work with the police, but at the same time, what was it? I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
But
well, I'd definitely be kind of broadly supportive of, and I think most people would be, of like having independent, like non-police organizations investigating the police, or somehow like bring more accountability to cases like this, because it shouldn't take like nationwide protests and like some riots and international like participation to get 4 cops prosecuted for killing this black dude, right? I wonder though, is there any like
George Floyd
proposals for that? Because like I think that's something people would definitely get around. Like I would get around that, and I think that's something that probably makes sense. Because even there's one thing I've seen in Australia is after that Aboriginal guy got killed, his family said there needs to just end the cycle of police investigating police, and that just seems like a logical thing to me. And yeah, I was wondering if you had any more perspective on that, if there's any people in the protests kind of talking about like some ways we could actually fix, let's say, prosecution or specific issues in other areas regarding police.
Yeah, I think they're like the governments are obviously it's all like city by city or whatever, whatnot, and working with the mayors and the governors. But I think there are appointing like they're thinking of new ways to like passing like metro like council bills to put police more accountable. But you need all these protests and all this kind of stuff to, if that never happened, if there was never a video, things would be the same, and police we have to wait for the next time for anything to happen. So this is all just about progress. Like no one wants to kill all the police or whatever. But there's definitely issues. Definitely issues with police and them sending police to enforce. People are protesting against police violence, and police are committing violence and tear gassing people who are peacefully protesting. There's just a lot of it's just ironic, I guess. Like, oh, we want justice. We want police, to get justice. You're sending the police, and they're like, in a way they're saving their own asses, So
well, definitely, I feel like there probably like needs to be somebody there. Like, I mean, there's been some like things getting put on fire and things getting smashed, people getting killed. Like, there's got to be some people there, I think.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying it's like people just want we want the police to get these police officers arrested. What are you gonna do? You're gonna send all their like coworkers to be like, fuck you, go home. Like it's very, the way they do it is it's just very ironic, and it's not conducive to. It doesn't give you like, if you go to the protest, you don't leave having a positive opinion about police. You're like, oh, these people are definitely have some issues, and they definitely did, like, it kind of validates, like, if you go to the protest, it definitely validates everyone's like anger and protest. Like,
I mean, yeah, I can definitely imagine that. There was like I did see one nice video of like a police guy saying to this group of protesters he was going to march with them, but he also.
Oh yeah, sure. Those are great. Yes, those are great, and those are all over. But you don't see the entire thing. What happens the next day or the next day, and what has that cop done before? Like, yeah, everything's peaches and cream when you're on camera. But what happens after it's all set, like after everything's done? Like.
Let me ask you maybe more personal question. Did you feel like when you were growing up, your experience in America, that because you were black, you had a harder time with cops than like your white friends, for example? like in your interactions with police, did you get a feeling that there was some level of race-based thinking involved?
Well, I've for the most part not got myself in any too much trouble, but uh, I don't think a lot of the time it wasn't really race based, but just the mentality of a lot of the police officers, especially from most of my experiences were in during university. A lot of them are in college towns, they're a few years older than us. Most of them never went to college, so they kind of don't like taking like flack from college students, I guess, because college students are like, oh, you're didn't go to college, you're a fucking loser, like all that kind of stuff. And I guess that kind of
you can imagine rubs them the wrong way.
So yeah, they a lot of them in college towns don't like college students, and they'll cite people for have carrying a beer, in college town, all kind of stuff. And they're very a little power hungry and definitely over excessive sometimes, for no reason.
Okay, well, I think that's been a pretty good discussion. Is there anywhere you think I should? We usually ask the interviewees, the people we're interviewing, to say like their social medias and stuff. I don't know if you want people, to be sent your way. Alternatively, they could, if you want to send me some like resources on Black Lives Matter, even we could put them in the description. Is there anything you want to say to the people before you go?
So the people, I mean, you'd obviously post my Instagram or something. I'll go to the protest tomorrow, and
Yeah, I'll post
that.
that.
I'm sure it's not gonna end anytime soon, so it'll be my story. So I'll keep everything public. I have a Twitter. You could post that a link as well if you want.
Twitter, I have to say, some funny shit gets posted on there often.
Yeah, but I mean,
well, anyway, we'll send
all like. You could always listen to like basically keep an open mind, and obviously don't always have to listening to like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson, all that kind of stuff kind of clouds your judgment, I think, and Breitbart, all that kind of stuff. I read that stuff too, but and they're a good way of like if you learn how they act and present their arguments, you could always see like the other side and stuff. So I don't know if that made any sense with that, but
okay,
yeah,
no, I get that.
Just keep an open mind, and don't listen to those people because they have their own agendas. What I'm saying, just kind of see everything objectively. Yeah, you've seen the video, all that kind of stuff, and make your own opinions. And there's definitely some issues. Statistics only go so far. And yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, share it around. I think there'll be some good highlights we can potentially put on Instagram. There's a few zingers might have been sent my way. But anyway, I had a good time. I look forward to catching up over something more informal in the future, Margin, but it was good to have you.
好的，好，谢谢，再见。
Alrighty, I'll see you later.